Okay, so hi everyone. I'm here with my friend and colleague Christopher Benton to monitor, guide us through some research stuff. I've gotten some very interesting ideas from several of you, so we've got a lot lined up for research projects that you guys are doing, and you have lots of questions, lots of ideas, so it's exciting. Evidence-based astrology is growing, a lot of enthusiasm. And I have a few announcements before I get into the topics that have been sent to me. And then if there's enough time, those of you who did not send me something, hopefully we can get to your stuff as well. Let's see how much we can get done. We usually take about an hour and a half, sometimes a little more. A few announcements. There's a new website for Cosmobiology Institute. Called cosmobiologyinstitute.org. So I'll show it to you. And it actually has two names. The existing website name, cosmobiology.org, will be redirected to the new one soon. It takes some time for them to do that, probably within a day or two. But the new one is so we have a few different domain names for it. But the cosmobiologyinstitute.org is up. I'll show it to you. Starlene has been working on it, and she's basically done it. Um, so this is what the new website looks like, and first thing on there is the conference, which is happening April 24 to April 26. The Cosmic Discovery Conference, the first conference. But we expect that this will be a regular conference. This will be the first one, April 24 to 26. So that's, less than a year away. So we've been working like crazy to get this going because it's kind of a rush to get it ready by April. And you can click here for more details. And then when you click there, the registration is up and available. So that takes you to this site. You click on details and registration. And the price right now is $400 for this weekend conference. It's a live conference. Um, right now, we do not plan to make it online. We just want to make sure that everything works live and have that operational. There's a call for papers that went out. So we will decide on the speakers, I think, by the middle of August, so about 3 more weeks. We'll make announcement. Well, that'll be the closing. The announcements will be made, I think, on October 1st, is that what I think we said. So if you've got research that you've done, the theme of the conference is what has been discovered? What do we have confidence in? What research has been done that gives us some confidence that astrology produces actual measurable results? That's the theme. And so astrologers, practitioners can come and learn, what have we figured out? What have those nerds with their number crunching and their data collections, have they figured out anything? Yes, we have. And that information get passed on to practitioners to improve your practice. So this is an evidence-based practice, just like in other professional fields. So very exciting. We're featuring also new research. So if you're doing research that's showing great promise, that's exciting, but it's not in final stages or whatever, there's room for that as well. There'll be exhibitions. We're really excited about this. So the registration is open. The details of who's speaking, what the topics are, there will be a pre and post conference. All that will be going up on the site soon. But this pricing ends September 30th at $400. Okay, so the conference is happening and all the details are here. Okay, so big news. Evidence-based astrology is now having actual physical gatherings. And there's some work being done in England with Correlation Magazine and other groups bringing everybody together. We're now meeting all these different groups and activities for empirical investigations into astrology. So very exciting. That's the big announcement. Let me go back to my page here. Um, Da, 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 da. Okay, there's also a new Facebook page and a new Instagram page. Things are getting updated and maintained better. Um, okay, so that's the big announcements. I'm ready to get into your questions and topics. I have two main ones, one from Benjamin and one from Ton. We're going to have Benjamin go first because he's got to leave by the end of the hour. Um, Let me introduce you to what Benjamin's doing, and then Benjamin, you can uh, you know, tell us. But I'll give a preview to what you're going to tell us. Is that Benjamin's been making connections between astrology and physics, especially optics. So how does light? What does light do? You know, there's lots of things. What's reflecting off of what frequencies? All these things of light. In Vedic astrology, one of the things they say about the word Jyotish is that it's the science of light. So if that's true, science of light, does the characteristics of light have anything to do with astrology? So this is a theoretical framework. Very often actually always research is done within some theoretical framework, some set of ideas, a framework. So if we take this idea of a connection between optics, the physics of optics and light to astrology. Benjamin sent a paper that he wrote up to me and Christopher with all these technical details and cutting edge science and how it might relate to astrology. And the big question in my mind, and I think also in Benjamin's mind, but you know, he'll tell us, is how can he take this idea, this hunch that he has that astrology and optics are connected. That's how research starts. You have some hunch, you have some idea. Um, what kind of research can we do based on that? So, what does this imply? Does these hunches that he has, do they imply anything about how astrology might work, what to look for? And one of the things he mentioned is that planets, and you can clarify this, Benjamin, but as I understand it, planets near the ecliptic plane might operate differently from when they're further off the ecliptic plane because of this light radiation. We're going to see, we'll hear from Benjamin what his thoughts are about what this implies about how astrology works. When you have a theory, you know what to look for, right? We're going to look for certain things. How can we test those ideas? First, we have to decide what does it imply. He's already got ideas about that, about how astrology might work. There may be variables that nobody's looking at, but with this theory, it tells us to look at certain things. And how can we set up a research project to see if the implications of this theory actually work out? And he's got some additional information here. Okay, that was a long introduction. I'll be quiet, and Benjamin, you can take it from here.
Thank you. And thank you, Santino, for just like this organization is like the standard for astrology research. And it's frankly what I'm flabbergasted things haven't been going doing for years. It's just like because there's so many people that take stock in it. It's frankly baffling to me that no one's looked into it at the level of rigor that you and everyone here has. So thank you. And a little bit of background. I didn't just you know come across this randomly. I started going to college at the University of Rochester, which is the top school for optics and optical engineering, like the science of light in the country. I ended up not being able to hack it because I need to interact with people, and sitting in a room with a big microscope is mind numbing as all get out. So I went into business, but I had taken a couple of courses exposing me to the really, really wild and cool things about light. And light is not just like the stuff that you see, it's also radio waves, it's also gamma rays, X rays. Um, it's also like a whole lot of other things. And they all work in a somewhat similar way. So I took a couple of courses and I'm applying some of that which I learned to astrology. And can I share a screen?
Oh yeah, okay, sure. Let me give the ability to share.
Oh, there's a share screen. Yeah, because I'll go through this. This started as like
I
a
think I
tweet.
actually have to give you the ability to share. Okay,
Oh,
it should
yeah.
work now.
Oh,
Okay,
and actually, can I
I'll
can I
stop
bring
sharing.
yeah. And there's a friend from like a sort of um cutting edge sciencey theory. Would you mind if I gave him the link to the meeting so he could join? Because he has some thoughts on
Oh
the
yeah,
potential of
the
using.
meeting is open to everyone.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
Here
yeah.
we are.
This is a
Perfect.
yeah. We like
So
people to get on the mailing list and stuff. But yeah, he or she can come in. So you can
wonderful.
share your screen as well. Now,
Here we are. So share screen. Let's just do the entire screen. I don't have
yeah.
anything to hide. Um, so this
Okay.
started. Um, so this started as a hot take on Twitter, and I sort of modified it a little bit. Um, so first, I'm just going to give you guys a quick introduction to the zodiacal light or the zodiacal dust. It's like a 2 minute video from NASA, because that's the basis of this. If that's all right. Um,
Yeah, it may not transfer through Zoom very well. Let's see if it.
okay, let me.
You need to
Okay,
share your screen with a special setting.
Yeah.
okay, yeah. Let
Um,
me see. Advanced sharing options.
there's a
Okay.
thing about sound. If you put that, select that. Um, if you don't see it, I can find it for you.
Oh, I. There we are. Share sound. There we go.
Yeah, that's what you need to do, share sound.
Okay, good. We see it and we hear it.
And liftoff of the Atlas V with Juno on a trek to Jupiter.
So I'm going back to this part because this is the key thing. This was 4 years ago. So talk about cutting edge. No astrologers have had a sense of this before. Um, and basically, what this taught us is that there is literally a donut um, that is just about the shape of um, the well, pretty close to the ecliptic area. So that shows us that the ecliptic is special, and dust reflects light. Actually, Brian May, the guy from Queen, did his PhD thesis on that sort of dust. So that is the origin for all this. Um, and I'm realizing as I talk with this, I was talking about out of bounds with Santino earlier. And because this is potentially based on Mars, and it could also be based on there are other circles, not just from Mars, but from the other planets. That might have something to do with the whole, ideas of the different spheres, the planetary spheres, because each sphere might be a donut made by that planet. That's just a side note. So that's the beginning of it. Second, dust from comets and just in general in space can cause laser light. Laser light is it can do a lot of cool things that regular light can't. The light basically gets excited or pumped is the technical term. Um, and this is a known thing that's known to happen in in space. It happens a lot on Jupiter, actually. You can see that if you have a radio telescope. You can pick it up. So we have a bunch of donuts of dust that could potentially cause laser light, aligned with the ecliptic. Um, and what this creates basically is, if you can imagine if you let me go back to this. So we have I'm just trying to get the good angle. So if you look over here, imagine that all of this is mirrors, because that's what it basically is. If you have a source of light like Mars is casting light, in all directions, but it's also casting light towards there, and it'll bounce off of there and hit that and go back and forth. And so this is basically a hall of, like a room surrounded by mirrors to a certain extent. And so that's the key. That's another of the key ideas. And the first thought is, what happens if one of the planets is way up here as opposed to in here? There are more mirrors in here because it's dust and not like a solid mirror. The more dust is around, the more strongly it'll reflect. Um, so, and right, the term is whispering gallery. Let me get the picture here.
The term is what?
Whispering gallery. That's sort of like, that's a not very clear picture, but it's like a sphere, a glass sphere, and you can see stuff like going all around it in that sort of way. And I'll drop the link to this document in the chat, actually, in case people want to do that. Here we are. Where is the chat? Chat.
You'll see it. It's one of the icons there.
And you can leave comments, and please do leave comments, because I am not an expert by any means. So we are going back to this. Now, the origin of all this light is either the sun or the stars. Edward Jandro did some work with light from specific stars hitting different cities. It's very complicated. I don't really understand it, frankly. I was hoping that Dr. Newman, if I said his name correctly, might be able to help with that, or potentially Dr. Benton. I know you have a mathematics background, so maybe you might be able to decipher that, or Santino. I don't know. So we have sorry, lost my train of thought for a second. And right, the light comes from the sun, and not all of the light is reflected at the same intensity or even angle. So basically, you'll have light in the rainbow, and different parts of the rainbow are going to get reflected more or less. This is like, let's say this is the red, this is the orange, this is the yellow, this is the green, for instance. And one of these is liquid water, one of these is water vapor, and you can see that it changes pretty drastically, and it's pretty consistent. And that's how this thing called spectroscopy, which is how you identify a lot of elements. And my thought is, if something, there's a principle, it's related to conservation of something, where if you can sense something, if something's emitted, then it can be absorbed. This is not very clear, and I need to workshop this, but basically, if you can, if a particle or if something is letting out stuff, in a certain way, it probably is going to absorb stuff in a similar way. So that's a possible way that this could affect things. If there's light that is coming out and it has this certain like uh, intensity profile of a certain way, maybe that could affect certain molecules in a certain way. And this, by the way, is just water. There are hundreds of thousands, millions probably. And then we also have polarization, which is another property of light. And there's one part of polarization called circular polarization, which flips every time you go, it reflects off of something. And that's important because, and I'm sorry, I should have prepared better. Some elements cause light to be circularly polarized in specific ways. There's a really good video by Steve Mould about how water with sugar causes light to be a little bit more, I think it's right-hand polarized, and you can see that, and that's how they like test for medicines and stuff. And so basically, for instance, Mars, let's say the light from Mars, maybe that'll be a little bit more right-hand polarized. And to give you an idea of what I mean by right-hand polarized, this is, if you think of a light wave, it is a wave. It goes up and down in some sort of space. Different people have an idea of have different thoughts about what that actual space is, but it basically goes, either straight up and down or in a circle, and sometimes it can be a little slanty circle, like an ellipse. And if you play it backwards, instead of going this way, it'll go the other way. Oh, well, I can't play this backwards.
Benjamin, can I ask
Yeah.
a quick question for clarification? I think a little earlier you were using the term light to represent the entire electromagnetic spectrum,
Correct.
visible and invisible.
Yep.
Are you now, like when you say light from Mars, are you talking about that entire spectrum or just visible light?
The entire spectrum, all of
Okay,
all of
so
what I'm
throughout,
saying. Yep. Everything that
throughout
I'm
we mean
saying.
the entire
Yeah.
electromagnetic
Yeah.
spectrum.
And I
Right.
should be more specific, but it's just longer to say electromagnetic waves, and people, it's not as intuitive. And this so happens to work really well with visible light and
Yeah.
close to visible light.
You need to keep it light.
Yeah. So basically my thought is, we all know that trines have a mediating effect. Trines, make things chill out, and squares make things as intense as they can be, if not make them more intense. And every time circular polarization, a ray of light that has a circular polarization hits a mirror, it switches from right-handed to left-handed to right-handed to left-handed. And so I realized that, let's say this is the sun. The sun and these symbols, that's the like circuit diagram symbol for an incandescent light bulb. So that's why I have that weird symbol on there. So light will come from the sun. Let's say it's red. That would mean that it's right-handed. So spinning this way, it'll hit, let's say, Venus. When it bounces off of Venus, it's going to switch to left-handed. So we have the red, and it goes to green because it's left-handed. Then it hits a point in the zodiacal cloud, in that dust donut that I mentioned, and then it's going to flip again. So it's going to be right-handed, right red, in this example. And if you're colorblind, I'm sorry, I did not mean to be terrible to you. I just didn't think about that. So then after it hits the sun again, it'll be left, and it'll be right, and then it'll be left, and then it will, and then it'll be a cycle. So assuming that it doesn't, diminish very much, which of course it does, But if you have a triangular, what we call a triangular uh, bouncing thing, they call it an orbit, um, then it will reduce the total uh, right-handed or left-handed polarization of the light. Whereas if you have a square, then it'll be right, it'll hit the planet, let's say Mars, because it's a square, then it'll be left, it'll be right, then it'll be left, and it'll continue in that way. So it'll stay just as right-handed or left-handed or what have you as it's been. So that will retain any intensity. Um, and that's really interesting to me because it's a way that something physical connects to something that we see in astrology. Um, and then in the last decade or so, maybe 15 years now, we have, as you know, humans have become able to sense light in a lot more advanced ways, especially in the infrared, in a couple of different parts of the light spectrum, from microwaves to gamma rays. And like here's a chart from traditional astrology. Patrick Watson, whose work I really admire, he shows all of these things to figure out where the part of fortune will be. Is it the day chart version or is it the nighttime version? And we have things like, is it a solar eclipse? Is it a lunar eclipse? Is it beneath the horizon or not? So these are all these things, and that reminded me of some optical engineering sort of like checklists when I was at school. And it just seemed so specific that there's no way that this could just be a metaphysical thing like tarot or something. There's also the concept of cazimi, in the heart of the sun, and there's something called the Arago spot in optics, where at the very center of if you have like a sphere in front of a light source, and then you have a a screen in the exact center behind that sphere, there will be a bright spot because of optics. And that reminds me of cazimi, where there's that tiny bright spot in the middle um, of the sun, where a planet will have that stronger power. Um, Now, of course, it's difficult because it's not occultations. It's in that plane, but it seemed related. And I got a ham radio license because this was just driving me nuts, and I needed to know more. Ham radio is basically learning about light in the radio spectrum, but it applies generally, and it also teaches you that there is this part of the atmosphere that ham radio people, which you can tell I'm one of them because my mental age is about 110. Use all the time. Depending on the time of day, you can bounce radio waves off of different parts of the atmosphere. One of these is called the heaviside layer. I forget which, because heaviside, well, it doesn't matter. But basically, there's the D layer that's not there at nighttime, and that changes how much certain wavelengths of light go through and get reflected and whatnot. And so all that together, I think there might be one more thing. Yeah, all that together, gives me a possible way that's testable, that gives us some indication. For instance, I came to the infrared by doing some calculations that I've since lost, based on the cazimi thing and the orbs, using some optical things, and I just lost that. But a couple of ways to test for this sort of thing. So if it's infrared, we know what stops infrared light. And infrared, and so if you like totally isolate, maybe use like an old nuclear bunker or something, and shield it from all of the infrared, and have like hamsters that you can track very easily with just cameras, and obviously do this in a humane way. Don't be mean to the hamsters. and you have a similar thing going on that's not shielded, and see if there's a difference in how much the activities of the animals relate to the charts. You could, have evidence for or against the astrological effects being from that specific range, whether it's infrared, whether it's gamma rays, whether it's anything else. There's also the there was a big survey of the sky taken by telescopes, basically looking at the infrared light at different parts in that zodiacal cloud. And it's probably going to be, and a lot of that data is open access. And so it might be possible to look into that and say, hey, when these planets were in this configuration, there was an unusually large signal in this area. And that might be a way to do it. And if that works, then there are these programs basically that help correct for the ambient light in the universe, and that could help actual telescopes to have better resolution, which would be super cool. So that's about the size of it. I have a document of how useful for astrology research various resources are. Of course, you guys and are at the absolute top. If you want to contribute, please do. It's totally open for anybody to work on. But I think, frankly, I think there's something really big here scientifically. Oh,
You're
Cindy,
muted,
Wow.
Santino.
oh, let me stop sharing.
Sorry, I was just going to say that was fun. Wow. Took us on quite a journey of ideas there. Yeah, I guess one of the questions is, we have one idea that Benjamin gave us of how to test it. We could have some animals or even people or whatever in a bunker, shielded from certain kinds of radiation. What other things? I think one other implication that you mentioned, Benjamin, was planets near the ecliptic plane might operate differently than if they're farther from the ecliptic plane, right?
Yeah, because if something's basically in the midst of those mirrors, then anything that hits it is going to be more reflected, I think. Again, I haven't worked through that very much. That was an idea that I thought of when emailing back and forth with you. But yeah, there should be, I imagine, and again, we'll have to ask an actual physicist or somebody who understands this better. There should be a difference between planets that are within that donut area or more within the donut area than not, and that should be detectable.
And would it make sense if a planet crosses the path of, say, Mars? Let's say Mars is inclined to the ecliptic plane. So if a planet reaches a part of its orbit where it crosses the path of Mars, maybe it's picking up, because Mars has its own little donut, if I understand this correctly. So it would
Yep.
be entering the Mars donut. So one implication of this is that if a planet moves into the orbit of another planet, even if it's nowhere near it, it's just moved into the path of that planet, because each planet has its own orbit.
Yeah,
It's creating its own little donut. And that donut is fairly stable over tens of thousands of years. It moves very, very slowly, which you can see by the movements of the nodes, which is very, very slow, the heliocentric nodes. So that's another implication of a variable that I don't think anybody has looked at that maybe is important. Like, does a planet pick up Mars quality of some kind when it crosses the Mars orbit? Would
yeah,
be,
because that dust is Mars. Like it's from Mars's, dandruff, basically.
yeah, yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Benjamin,
Yeah,
Benjamin,
yeah.
can I ask you a question? What I'm trying to get from what you're saying is, have you sense of, have you developed any language, because there's a correspondence. When you talk about lights and all of that, there's difference in frequency and it's give identity. Do you point any language that you can affix to each difference in frequency? Because what I'm detecting, based on your difference in donuts and cross paths, there's a frequency change that creates an identity. For me as an astrologer, I look at language. What is that connects to? What language are you developing from this frequency thing that you have detected with these donuts and cross plays and all of that? Because in our usefulness, we will use what you are detecting and say, well, this happens and this creates a language that we can use in our system. That's where that's what I'm looking at, you know. So when you're doing your thing, I just think of, are you creating a language based on the difference in the frequency, or you need to sort of gut what we know as astrologer and compare it with difference in frequency detection that you have observed in your in your discoveries?
So that's a really good question. It touches on a lot of things. In terms of frequency, and it also reminds me that when the light bounces off of these things, based on how the planets are moving and how that is moving relative to the Earth, which is where we observe everything, that causes a shift in the frequencies and the wavelengths a little bit. That's called a Doppler shift, and that might have something to do with how we how retrograde motion is perceived, because it's a rather dramatic shift from the typical shift that we see. In terms of the language, I there are a lot of the most of these things have like technical scientific terms, which I am not very good at describing. Um, and I'm hoping that working with everyone here will help us to develop this language and bridge the gap. I've had errant thoughts of making like a handbook translating astrological concepts into science language to help people to be able to understand this. And I frankly think that that anything in the astrological techniques might give us an idea of where to look and help us to find things that might help science. And I'm sorry if I didn't answer all the question. Please do send me an email. I think my email's in that Google Doc, or just send me a message. I'd love to talk more.
Can I ask you a further question?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you was doing this, when you was getting yourself all worked up with this, what excites you about your observation? What is it that you say, well, I like this. Nobody haven't seen this. What is what is it that you grabs you in your observation? And then when you make mention of that, then we as astrologers can either make an assignment to what you observed in your experiment. So I'm just asking you, what is it in all of what you do that excites you and say, oh, this is something. This is something that I think will make a mark on what these astrologers are doing. Let me just highlight it. And could you share with us what is that? And then in our knowledge of what language we have, we can sort of correlate with what you're saying as if it's in any great significance to our language. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. That's a beautiful question. Um, and it's so I wasn't going to go there, but um I've constantly been sort of frustrated by the idea that we can't figure out what is going on beyond the quantum level. That's always bugged me because the way that we that is because the way that the reason that is because all we can use to sense things is light. And it's sort of like using tennis balls that bounce off of things to detect where stuff is. If there's stuff that's substantially smaller than a tennis ball, it's going to be hard to find that. But that's not a problem with the universe. That's just our method of measurement is too coarse. But we have this huge millennia long history of people finding something useful in astrology. We have all of this stuff, and I honestly suspect that it will give us some insight at the on either the molecular level, the atomic level, potentially the quantum or the subquantum level. I honestly think that astrology is the way that we are going to figure out what's going on at those smallest scales. If there is something that genuinely does mirror the universe, if there, because there are actual like physics theories that go into that to cause the as above so below thing to be really physical and and to get that synchronicity to act like they're like gravitational echoes. There's let me drop a link to Sabrina Pistersky's gravitational thing. Sabrina Pistersky gravitational echo. So that's what gets me really excited. I've been chasing this for about 7 years. And what gets me excited is there's got to be something physical here. This is way too consistent to not have something physical. And there's a huge discovery scientifically hiding in here somewhere. And that's what drives me.
All right, great. I'm definitely on your side. And the reason why I'm on your side with what you're saying is because as well as I do astrology, I do have a quantum mind. And I will throw this out to you. The black hole. Now, if you use some of what you're observing, what about this idea that the black hole, when anything that goes in the black hole, they say that it's gone. There is a force point, which is the future, that is actually pulling everything. So what I'm actually saying, the future is just not an abstract thing. It's actually a, a unit of energy or power that actually pulling everything into that. But it goes through uh, waves of different, what we would say, time notations, because future is ahead, but there's a difference in time notations that carries when you have the first one, the second one, the third one, and as it goes inwards to the black hole. And that point is so powerful, it pulls everything. But because we have other scientific viewpoints and wordings for what we don't really know, but the future as a unit, as a force point, pulling everything into that black hole, but goes to a time notations, difference in time notations, whether it's a spirit, whether it's causal, whether it's all of these different times, but it's all points to different frequency points as it goes along. But what I'm saying to you, just ball this up in your head that the future is a force point that pulls everything in it. Now, one of the things that can kind of give some evidence that this may be occurring is the instruments that United States have, and the Swiss people. I think it's there in Switzerland or something, one of those European countries. but they share this triad of
You mean the LIGO?
representing an equipment that takes on the measurement of the black hole.
Yeah, the
Anything that goes.
gravitational
Yeah.
Yeah,
phase
yeah,
Let me
yeah.
just say, Benjamin, before you get into this, we're going to try to wrap up within 4 to 5 minutes, because we've got another presentation. So let's try to get some of the real key things, and maybe we can continue with this at the next meeting or and in between.
Yeah, send me an email about that because that's a good question. It depends on a lot of things.
Yeah. May I add a little bit?
Yeah, I'd like to
Benjamin?
hear from a few people. We've only, like I said, we need to switch over, but I don't want to leave out some, let's have a few people who have things on their minds about this. Go ahead. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, being a physicist myself from origin, I love the idea to look for something physical to explain how astrology might work. So I have to compliment for that. I was not aware of this theory you have. So the other thing I want to add, maybe can be combined, is that I'm involved in all kinds of projects where on neurological level and on microorganism level, so really small things, and you can consider DNA and RNA as antennas of the cosmic energy. So I was always wondering why people respond to astrological phenomena. And one way because we are a bunch of bacteria and viruses and cells having their own frequencies, and they can respond to those frequencies. So if your theory is right, then it should be observable in different species, because we all have different ways to observe those light waves you talk about. So that can be combined. So there's also a new way to look at it, that people can respond, because the bacteria and the viruses inside us can respond to those small cosmic signals, and we are steered by those bacteria in our gut.
Yeah.
And that's a combination of the micro world with the macro world you're describing from a physical point of view. So I really love your idea. So that's the only thing I want to say. Thank you for bringing this in.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kirk.
Can I throw in a couple of words?
Yeah.
Okay. First, I personally love the idea that our reality may somehow depend upon this giant cosmic bagel out in space. That's just an image I like. Second, Santino, does the term Jalisco effect, does that ring a bell?
Callisto, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
he's done some work. Yeah, I was thinking of Callisto, also John Nelson's work, and of course Landscheid's work. So I think Landscheid, Callisto, and John Nelson are also working, on some things that overlap with what you're doing.
yeah, and Nick Kollerstrom did some work on the Callisto effect also. It's been a long time since I've looked at, but as I recall, what it is you take you have certain metals in solution, like let's say we have iron in solution,
That one. Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
precipitates out of solution, and there's some sort of special filter paper you can put in that jar of iron in solution. As it precipitates out, things gradually come up the filter paper, and they create certain identifiable patterns or whatever. But when Mars is conjunct certain planets, what was observed was those patterns change. And so I'm now wondering if the work that was done, the methods used to detect this Callisto effect, if they might also apply to what you're trying to measure. I don't know if it'll work or not, but it's
Yeah, Callisto did come up with some specific astrological configurations that affected chemical reactions. I don't know why it seems like hardly nobody to my knowledge has picked up on this work from decades ago, but it's very interesting. And what we're also hinting at here is the whole field of cymatics, which Benjamin, you're probably familiar with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so all these things are overlapping and intersecting. Yeah.
mhm.
And just the fact that you mentioned that, um the infrared area, one of the reasons I'm so sort of, concentrating on it is because that's the area where the molecules vibrate, and it has to do with how quickly like molecules do things.
Mhm.
Um, and the antenna thing, um, I think that's brilliant. I've heard people hypothesize that it's the red blood cells, that potentially it's the something in the nerves. There's certain nerve endings. There's also the microtubules in the brain that have been theorized.
Mhm.
Um, and my also, this is something that I didn't write down, but I've suspected for a while. The reason that the point of birth is so important is because a fetus is surrounded by the amniotic fluid. That's water, and that stops a whole lot of different wavelengths of light. The moment that child is no longer surrounded by either that amniotic sac or the fluid, or the mother, um, that child is exposed to the basically cosmic everything for the first time, and maybe that causes like an imprint, um, and maybe that causes an imprint in like deep inside the something. I don't know. That was just a thought that I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that I
Yeah.
got out.
Yeah. Can you boil things down to a specific question that you're asking that you want to get the answer to through experimentation?
Is there a For right now, is there a difference astrologically between what we see when a planet is farther away from most of those donuts
Hmm.
as opposed to smack dab in the middle?
Oh, okay.
That would be where I would want to start.
Yeah, the
And
one
so,
thing I mentioned to Benjamin as an example is the research I've done on accidents, and I never brought it to the point of having, the statistical analysis and all that. But the model appears to be very strong. Alejandra Eusebi in Argentina is also doing research on accidents. And, a very simple idea would be what if, like the formula I developed has to do mostly with midpoint structures involving Mars, Uranus, and 4 or 5 other planets. It was only midpoint structures. The aspects didn't work. Oh, certain vibrational things worked, but it was mostly midpoint structures. Well, now I'm wondering if when those accidents occurred, if the transiting planets had a certain ecliptic latitude, how far off the ecliptic plane are they? And could they have been moving into the orbit of another, like it was Mars moving into the orbit of Uranus or vice versa? Because Uranus has a very small latitude. But anyway, those might be simple ways to get a handle on applying the idea, at a starting point.
so when something is getting further away from this donut, is that the same as saying that the declination is getting increasing, either north or south? We're getting further away from the celestial equator?
Not
It's
declination, would be ecliptic latitude.
it's one of those, I'm not sure which one, the terminology. I'm not sure if Santino actually pointed that out, and I'm sure that I got it wrong.
Something can have a
But
lot of declination, like 23 degrees of
yeah,
declination, still be on the ecliptic.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
higher or
Yeah.
outside of the ecliptic band, or farther towards the edges of the ecliptic band. Oh, and a friend of mine, Adam, he's been doing some work at like some rather cutting edge physicsy theories, and I've wondered if some of them might have something to do with astrology, because that it some of the effects that might have. I was wondering if he would be willing to speak for a second about how that
We
might.
we probably need to, we're up to an hour now. I think we need to bring in our next person. Um, but this is fascinating. And, I would like to go for 3 or 4 hours. But I think we need to move over to the next person. One other thing I want to mention is the overlap with work like Nassim Haramein, like Desdale mentioned, black holes, and black holes play a key part according to Nassim's theories, and that could all be part of this as well. There's so many interesting overlaps with so many different approaches to physics and astrology. Does anybody else have any last things they want to say about Benjamin's work? Any questions, thoughts? Um, okay. I
Oh,
guess
Benjamin, can Benjamin share, can you share your email, please?
Yeah.
Benjamin, is that fine?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
There we are.
okay, so he's got it there in the chat. Yeah, and we maybe we want to have some dialogue continuing among a lot of us through the months since we only meet once a month. And yeah, this is so fascinating. Benjamin, thank you so much. This opens up a whole new world of possibilities, and it intersects with so many things that are going on out there. Okay, Adam is here. He says you can share next time. We're gonna have to bring you guys back and get some more of this.
Yeah, maybe I
Ton was
can make like
actually
a
first
Discord
on the
server.
was first on the list. So I'm feeling a little guilty if I boot him off completely. So I want to get him in. He's got PowerPoint he wants to share. But this is so fascinating. I feel a little rude for uh, doing musical chairs here, but I think we have to.
I'm sorry, I do need to head out, but thank you so much, guys. And yeah, send me an email if you want to have any sort of, maybe we could do like a Discord server or something, and maybe
Yeah,
just generally for this, to
yeah,
discuss
and I know
more.
you've got to run anyway after the hour. So
Thank you.
okay, fantastic, Benjamin. Thank you so much. All right. Wow. Whole new world. Ton, are you ready to show us what you're doing?
Yes.
I will, okay, okay, I'm not sharing at the moment, so you can share.
Sure. Okay.
So you guys, if you email me, before the meeting, basically I go in the order of um, people contacting me. I had 2 contacts. Actually, Ton contacted me first, but we decided to do Benjamin first since he had to leave early. Okay. And
You can
Todd, to
see.
introduce you're
Yes.
interested in out of bounds, I think was one of the ideas. Oh, no,
Yes.
no, topocentric. Our,
Yes.
do we want to, I want to just introduce what you're, remind people who were here before and people who are here for the first time. Todd is interested in when we look at a planetary position, I want to just review this for everybody so we're on the same page. When we bring up our astrology software, where you look in an ephemeris, you're seeing where the planets are as if you lived in the center of the Earth. Do any of you live in the center of the Earth? I mean, I don't. So we're not actually seeing where the planets are from where you are. It's like a compromised position. And especially for the moon, because the moon is relatively close to us, it can make up to a 1 degree difference in zodiac longitude, about a degree where it is. So if you go out and look at where the moon is, um, visually it could be up to about a degree different from this average position that we use. And Ton has this sense, mostly from anecdotal evidence, from looking at things, that the what we call the topocentric planet means from the where you are on the Earth, your actual position. Sometimes it's called parallax corrected. There are 2 terms for it. That this, we'll call it topocentric for now. That the topocentric position is particularly important for the moon, since it makes a big difference, is actually telling us more about you as an individual. And the usual moon we're using is more like a collective, things you share. So they might both be important, but the topocentric might be more important. And as far as I know, nobody's really done careful research on this, and it's hugely important. So that's my introduction to what at least one thing that Tan has been thinking about, and he's come up with ideas for how to research it. Okay, Tan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Santino, for your introduction, and thank you that I'm, as a new kid on this blog, can present to you all. I'm been around quite some time, and also busy with astrology, but no one in the astrological world actually knows me, and that is because of my old job as executive management consultant, and I could not combine that. But now I have more time, a little bit more time, and I want to pick up things. I will share my PowerPoint. I will start. I hope it is visible for everybody.
Yeah, looks good.
It's a contribution to this topic, and topocentric versus geocentric planetary positions in VA, and especially VA is important because of VA, which I have been following from the very early start. It was developed by Santino and on the basis of some others called harmonics. Everything was all right. When I applied VA principles to my own work and research, I always, being a physicist, thought we have to be as accurate as possible. So for me, from the very start, I used the true lunar node and not the mean lunar node. Of course, I calculated them both, but I used the true lunar node because from theoretical principles, that should be the true node. And the same holds for me for topocentric, because we are born at a particular place, and we see the stars and the planets, and the most accurate position you can calculate should be used for VA. That was my philosophy, and I was then puzzled. I was triggered by two persons, by you, Santino, and by Starlene and her video channel, where they talk about all those 360 vibrations, and by Christopher Pridham, who made a book about that. And in his book, I just received it a couple of months ago, he described very extensively Donald Trump being a 129th harmonic. Then I started to realize, well, what does he use for moon? Because the moon was very important in that configuration. Then I saw that the moon in topocentric was not in that configuration. That changed the whole interpretation. I was also triggered by Santino doing also very high vibrations. He started with 1 to 32, but before I realized he was in the hundreds and now in the thousands. And I saw several of his nice videos showing very high vibes. But when I checked what the difference is between topocentric and geocentric moons and other planets as well, it can make a big difference. So I thought, well, why do they take the geocentric? Has anybody studied that? So that was the real trigger. And when I came on board of this platform recently, I brought it in, and Santino said, well, that's a good idea. So what I not want to propose now is I have some first thoughts on possible research projects. This is my name. Also, I will introduce a little bit myself because no one knows me. But what is the problem? And I will show that Houston, we have a problem. And I will show it, and that's for the very first time I do that in my life, to show some data from myself. I've never done that because I'm a very private person. but I will show it because I know myself very well, hopefully, and I can interpret the difference between configurations where topocentric and geocentric planets are used. I will show that, how I build that up. This is my natal chart, geocentric. I use the true lunar node as explained. And you see on the right side, you see the positions. And look at the moon, it's in 21 Cancer, and a little bit. During my decades of study about myself, I have investigated whether I am in 21st or 22nd degree in Virgo, because in Cancer, because that makes a big difference in the interpretation. And I refer to the degree interpretations. There are many. I use them all actually to see what is in it. This is, I use Sirius 4.1. So these graphs come from Sirius, and I use the Huber way of presenting because I have made an extensive study of Huber astrology, which is German, Swiss, Italian, and I consider that as one of the best psychological astrology approaches, and also evidence-based a lot, because they did a lot of study before they put that in practice. Now you see that in the parallax corrected moon, there are three options in Sirius. That's a geocentric, then only the moon is parallax corrected. And you see that now we are talking about 21 degrees and 80 minutes and 51 seconds. So that is a difference of almost 19 minutes for my horoscope, for the moon position. And as Santino told, you can have up to 1 degree, and it depends on the latitude of our location, and it depends whether the moon is close to the ascendant, descendant, or it's in the midheaven or in the IC. And that can change a lot. So this is then the parallel corrected positions for all planets. Can also be calculated, and you hardly see any difference for the other planets, but there are a little bit. I'll show you here. Look at the sun. You see it is 59 seconds, and here is 57 seconds. That is not much, but we are now talking about 5-1 being the natal. So now I go to a crucial personal example of a vibe which is important in my horoscope, this 125, and 125 is of course 5 times 5 times 5. And the moon, if you calculate, it was in the natal, the difference was 18 minutes and 40 seconds times 125. And then you can do the math, and this is a round up 38 degrees, 43 minutes and 20 seconds. So the moon will change for this vibe, which is important in my horoscope, 38 degrees, which is a lot. And now we are only talking about 125 harmonics, and we are not even talk about a bigger difference that can exist. If you go to other places in the world, it can easily be one degree, and then times 125, it means 125 degrees. So you have a complete different configuration if the moon is important in your considerations. To show that, here's my 125th harmonic, and this is calculated for geocentric. And then you see here Sun, Saturn, and here the moon. now I calculate only the parallax corrected moon. And you see, now I have a combination, only 2 degrees between sun and moon and between Saturn and sun. So it's within 6 degrees. And the sun is right in the middle, so it's a very strong configuration. And in Huber astrology, this means this is the ego. They define the sun as the male side and will. They define the moon as the child and emotions, and Saturn as the, let's say, the restriction and education. So you can put those in the same words as Santino does that. Basically, sun is present, moon is past, and Saturn is focus on cut the crap, the essence. So this is a very important configuration. It's my basic ego, and if you look, this is of course calculated as an harmonic chart. My ascendant is 15 degrees Gemini, so this is very close the background to my natal chart, and so this configuration is in my 6th house, and that has to do with my work. If you know what I have done for work, is that I work a lot with a lot of people, and I try to combine their talents. I try to come up with joint problem analysis and joint solution decision making. Basically, I'm an expert in interactive decision making my whole life at different levels: governmental level, business level, and personal level. So this configuration, well, this is for me the truth. This really resonates, and there are many more configurations, and that changed if I use the geocentric. It's completely different, and even the most important vibes change if you calculate according to the method in Sirius by Santino, or if you calculate it by the method of Linda, it changes. This is the 125th, the same, but then the parallax corrected for all planets. You cannot see a difference in this graph, but there is, and I show you here. And this is geocentric, topo moon, I call it, and topocentric. And you see that in the moon, in the geocentric, it is this position in the topo moon, and the topocentric are the same calculations, so they are the same. And this is indeed 38 degrees and 53 minutes as expected. But also see there are other changes. You see, let's see the sun. The sun is in the topocentric way. You see here is 8 minutes and 44 seconds, whereas in the geocentric is 11 minutes. It's 3 minutes. It doesn't look a lot, but if you go now from 125, let's say 500 times higher in the thousands, it makes a big difference already for the sun also. The same holds for Mercury, the same holds for Venus and Mars, and especially when Venus is between the Earth and the sun, because that is closer by and the parallax is bigger. And the same holds for Mars when Mars is close to the Earth. So basically when Mars is opposite sun from seen from our Earth. So I conclude that this is a big difference in the moon, but also the other planets are influenced. And if we look at very narrow, very strong vibes, we go to a degree or less, and we go even to several minutes for midpoints. So this is a factor which cannot be neglected if you want to do a serious study. So here I want to share the illustration how I can use it in interpretation. Here is the same parallax corrected position for the 125th harmonic. And now I have plotted 5 asteroids in it, and I'm very grateful for the interpretation from VA point given by Centino. And you see that my eagle, these 3 planets, it has a color of Pallas, and Santino can explain in 3 or 4 videos. He has explained that what Pallas is, what its influence is when it is close to important personal planets. So you can see that I will show you that in this harmonic or this vibe, the moon is very closely connected to Pallas. So it will stay the same more or less for higher frequencies. Here you can see what I mean. This is also taken from Sirius, and here you all written by Santino. So you can see that Pallas is 25 Scorpio, and the moon is 24 Scorpio and 60 minutes. So it is within 1 minute, one degree. And you see here that the sun and the moon and Saturn are in a midpoint structure with the sun in the middle. So this is a very strong configuration. Okay. I now go even to higher vibes. I now go another times 5. I will not show. I have done into the 10,000s just out of curiosity, but then I realized, well, I have to know better what accuracy is behind everything before I calculate. The computer is patient and can calculate each and every value, but what is the value in terms of accuracy? And I have not even considered that before, because this is the very first time that I need those accuracies. As a side path, I have been trained by a Dutch astrologer. Name is Jan Gilles, maybe not known in the world, but he was very well known for very accurate predictions, and he could predict within 1 day normally over 40 to 50 years. There's an enormous amount of work published by him in his magazine, and he has a successor, a student of him, who is still active, and he is very well known to make the most accurate calculations ever for calculating progressive charts and building and correct horoscopes on that, even to the second. So this is how it looks like if I use the 625th harmonic, and this is the geocentric of topocentric, and this is the geocentric, and you see in the topocentric, Pallas is still close to the moon, as could be expected from the previous 125th vibe. Here, the moon is not even close; it's opposite. It has changed almost 180 degrees. And we only talk about 625th harmonic and a starting situation in a natal of 19 minutes difference between topocentric and geocentric calculations for the moon. So this makes clear what I'm talking about. Here you can see those change of values, this topocentric, and you see that in the topocentric, okay, the Pallas is not shown here. What important is that the 15 degrees, the sun is right in the 15 degrees. My ascendant is exactly 15 degrees, Gemini. So the sun 625th harmonic, Sun, is right on the natal ascendant. And I know that is another topic of discussion, how that can be interpreted or not. I do, because I all see this as a energy pattern starting at 0 Aries, and this is an energy pattern. And I really like to plot everything in the natal environment, so I can see the energy patterns working in the natal and not in the harmonic, because is a different way to interpret, and have all kinds of problems with that. So you can see that that the sun is in the 15 degrees Gemini, which is to my ascendant, and I interpret that as important, because it says that this energy of that ego of 625 is coming out through my natal ascendant. It's an energy pattern that is available. I have the same with 33, the sun, the moon, and Uranus are combined, are right on my ascendant. Okay, then I have some observations to make, and then I come to proposals. My first observation is that this personal case shows the need for a thorough evidence-based research into the issue of topocentric versus geocentric planetary position. In this case, the parallax correction for the moon was about 19 minutes. However, values up to 1 degree occur, tripling the effect observed in this case. It potentially has far-reaching interpretive effects, e.g. other strongest vibe. I calculated the strongest vibe for Centino using geocentric and topocentric, and the top is different. Of course, you see some similarities, but the real top is different, and I see it for me the same. So that is important, because some people take a lot of value in the highest harmonic, as if that is the only harmonic that is important, which is not the case, of course. It is always a combination. In this showcase, it pertains myself, and this is a little description of who I am. Being active all my life in soul searching, meaning of life, and finding my true mission in life. I'm inspired by many, but in particular by Edgar Cayce, Carl Gustav Jung, the Hubers, with their astro-psychosynthesis approach, which is based upon Roberto Assagioli. Spiritual NLP, I'm a master in NLP. I have studied that for over 20 years and applied it in my work and coaching work. And finally, the Bible. Also, I'm intrigued by the cosmos since my 8th year. So that is 65 years ago. I studied physics at Delft University in medical signal processing. I'm considered an expert in group decision making at all levels in society. Because of my academic studies, I have evolved into a true but open-minded Christian, with Jesus as my teacher and main spiritual example. So based on using science, I thought there is something more, and I could only explain it in this way. And I've studied the Bible very extensively and all kinds of other studies all over the world. So I may consider myself as a student in Know Thyself and Know God. That said, I consider the use of topocentric position as a must to be always included in research and consultations. This is my observations. In a brief internet search for research on this topocentric versus geocentric planetary position, I found hardly any papers or articles. One interesting blog post, however, I want to mention here, and that is given here, and that gives a description. It's a very old blog, but it's very interesting to read. But more literature should be searched for. I did that really overnight. What I present here, I've been thinking of, but I have other work to do as well. So I prepared today this presentation. In the following section, I want to present some first thoughts as to possible research activity as parts of a well-defined research project. I have not come up with a proposal for a research project, but just open for dialogue and debate. Some ideas about first research activities. First, I want to start with build a theoretical framework. You can calculate how the topocentric and geocentric is different, and where the difference are, because you have to stratify each and every case in terms of the amount of difference between topocentric and geocentric values. My second idea was reanalyze earlier VA studies with both topocentric and geocentric. And even Santino said last time, maybe because he was puzzled why the moon was not involved in his book research, maybe it has to do with this, but you only know if you investigate it. But there are more VA studies. I am aware that there is a VA study of a True Note, which is not free available. I cannot find it, and it is behind paywalls. But there are many VA studies which can be redone by simply looking at topocentric versus geocentric position and see what key differences there are, and stratify that to significant classes of parallax correction values and extract lessons learned. That's a very easy way to do, but I need help from other people who have done those VA studies and have access to those VA studies to do that. The third idea I have is select persons with very accurate natal charts, and e.g. constructed with professional birth time corrections based upon well-documented life events and on the most accurate birthplace. That's also a point, that you should calculate the most accurate birthplace. If you go to those very high values of harmonics, vibes, each and every accuracy should be taken. So you should have the most accurate birthplace coordinates available. Professional astrologers with high self-conscious are a target group, in my opinion, because they can judge when they apply that correction, whether that makes a difference they can understand or resonate. So let them analyze their best natal chart with topocentric VA and report back on their honest experiences. This is idea 3. Idea 4, select major events with exact times, e.g. accidents or natural disasters, where you have exact times. A formal inauguration of president is one that those have exact times, and you can analyze that. What is the difference between topocentric and geocentric calculations? Of course, secondary progressions and other prediction hindcasting techniques can be studied for the parallel effect on timing. It can have a big effect, and I just saw this weekend a second progression adaptation by Santino presented. I forgot the name, but it's something Indian correction of the second progression, which you'll find better working, Santino, than the normal way. So secondary progression is a way where you can observe the differences. Then the 6th point is, you can study the influence of the parallel effects on degree interpretation. Many people use degrees without realizing that some of the degrees can be different, and even one degree can have a quite different interpretation. And Lina knows everything about that, about those degree interpretation. And that concludes actually. There are even more suggestions, but these give some ideas of the type of research that can be done together with people using, and I'm open for discussion, and this is the very last. This is me. This is the first time I ever showed it to anybody. And you see, I was born in a birth clinic. It's Dutch for birth clinic. Very accurate positions to the second. I have a certified birth and many more evidence that my time is correct. I've tried to correct my times, and this is always what comes back as the best value still. And you are very welcome to analyze me and privately share your honest thoughts. And I appreciate your confidential use of these data, because this is a very big step for me that I show this data. I use tropical Koch because I'm involved with the Huber of the patterns. That is also interesting. The Hubers work with triangles and four angle patterns, and they have found out that the inconjunct has a learning aspect and a decision-making aspect. That's basically what I heard Santino saying also about the inconjunct aspect. But they have done, and I can show it. It's very, very interesting. This is the book Aspect Pattern Astrology in Colors, and you see they have red for energy patterns, squares and opposites, and they have blue sextiles and trines for relaxing energies, and they have green for communication, decision making, and learning, which is.
Can I say something? Can I say something?
I'm almost ready.
Okay. Oh, you finished? I was just
No,
gonna.
he says he's not finished. He says he's almost ready. You need to wait.
Okay.
So this is what I show. I want to do research into using VA with those energy patterns, and of course it can be extended because these are 12 harmonic patterns. Each and every of the 40 patterns they have identified collapse into conjunctions if the figure is to the minute correct. But you can extend it also, of course, to the 8 harmonics, including aspects. And these patterns, they have investigated what their meaning is. In terms, they have given them names: megaphones, a streamer. In my natal chart, I have a streamer, and that is a person who has 2 blues, 2 greens, 2 reds, and he can handle immense powers. And in my work, I had to stand between all kinds of conflicting parties in order to come to a joint statement and conclusions. And so I'm used to handle all those kind of patterns, and that is basically the streamer. This is one of the big configurations. So I'm very I think those patterns are very useful in interpreting, and they have done decades of research in that. But I must say that their research is not so well documented that you can repeat it, and that is a pity. That is a pity. But they done a lot of research, well, this is basically what I wanted to say, and I hope that I made a contribution. Basically, I want to study those patterns of Huber even further in terms of VA, and I use the Huber patterns in analyzing higher vibes and see patterns in there which I can interpret in the same way as in the natal, and that seems to, for me, it works. But that is not evidence-based research, of course, and so I want to do that. Yeah.
Okay, so I think Desdale has a question. We'll open it up for discussion. We are already running a little overtime, so we'll try to condense it down, allow as many people to say something. Before we go into that, I want to just thank you, Ton, for making the PowerPoint and organizing everything and sharing some personal information, which is new for you. So I appreciate that. Yeah, so let's try to get as much as we can in a short time. Des, you wanted to say something, so go ahead, you can start. You're still muted. Okay.
Oh, okay. What I wanted to say is that you were studying the topocentric and the the two entities. But what I'm getting at is that did you where you were born and where you're living can bring about difference in how you acquire that information. You make mention that you have a descriptive of yourself, but is that descriptive of where you are at or where you were born? Because there's a significance in the rising sign. And if you got a difference in rising sign wherever you are at this moment, there's going to be a difference in what sort of energy that you have in terms of
Yes,
what you're going to be
I'm
broadcasting.
aware of that.
You
I'm
following?
aware of that. But like everything, it starts with the birth chart, and that is the basic pattern that is in all your life present, and you can change. Yeah, it's more or less the same as in genetics. You have real genetics, and you have epigenetics, and the epigenetics is the surrounding, and that influence all the genes in coming to expression or not. So basically, the birth chart is the basic, and the other things are changes within that basic. So that's the way I see it, and that is the way, to me.
I was
Yeah,
just saying that you come up with the accumulated description of what you are, and that can be distorted by where you are living against where you were born.
yeah, but
Yes, yes,
I still live very close to where I was born right now. I have not done a study. I've traveled a lot, but I have not done a study.
and the reason why I'm saying that is because you as well as you do Dave's vibrational. I think you mentioned about Chris and all that. It's Chris books and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And if you read the book, then and some of what he do against what Dave do, it picks up some difference in location where you actually were born, and if you might just get. I mean, if you are born with three eyes, you're going to have three eyes wherever you go on this planet. But how you orient your energies across the
The
different
way one
locations,
way to have a
that's
feeling
that's what
about
I'm
it.
that's what I'm saying.
Your question is quite clear. The way I interpret, the way I try to make sense, if someone is living at a different place when it was born, is to calculate the Davidson chart, because the Davidson chart is more or less, let's say, a combination of the natal chart and a chart at that new place, and you can calculate the Davidson chart to calculate the influence of the new location, and that can be done. Yeah, but that doesn't change my
Yeah.
main point. That
Let me summarize a quick point, a good point that Desdale's making. I want to go on to other things because we are already over time. I don't want to get as much in, but one thing to keep in mind is we often think to ourselves, well, relocation, like, I was born in New York. I live in Ohio. So usually we think, well, only the houses are different. It's so drilled into us, like only the houses are different. It's like a mantra. Only the houses are different. Well, now what Tan's bringing to our attention is no. If I use my relocated chart, my moon could also be, significant, especially if I move a big distance. So it's just an interesting thing that I've got drilled into my head that if I relocate to California, pretty far away, only the houses change. But now in my relocated chart, the moon
Maybe
could
it's
be a
not.
little bit different. So it's just something to be aware of. Um, it's an interesting realization that
Yes,
now,
that is.
so
yeah,
that was just a key point. I want to get other people in because we're already over time. But and that was, I want to thank Desdale for mentioning it because I myself, until he started talking, I'm so addicted to thinking that only the houses change when I move. And
Um, I'd
Yeah.
like to make a couple comments.
Yeah.
First of all, that was fascinating information, Todd. I really, really appreciate you sharing it with us, and it's very stimulating. And as you were talking about it, I was balancing that against using the topocentric moon, the way we normally do in vibrational astrology. I have a couple of super significant descriptive event patterns in my chart
Mhm.
that I don't see how they could not be correct. Of course, I know things can manifest in different forms in different parts of the chart. So, like the moon, sun, Saturn being significant for you. If I were to search with some of the material I have in my new version of Frequency Finder, I could find the places where the sun, moon, and Saturn were in conjunctions other than 125.
Oh,
And
yes.
you know, so
Know them.
it's not that the energy is not there, but I'm I think research is necessary, but there's something I want to propose to all of you. We are so used to thinking in terms of either or, and there's only one answer. Maybe both are correct.
David started with that remark that I said that maybe the geocentric moon has something to do with the Earth's soul. So the combined soul for everybody on Earth,
Yeah,
and the parallax moon has something to do with a specialty within the Earth's soul,
which is
and
that
then combine
yeah,
it.
right. It's it makes me think of what Kelly Hunter did with Lilith, where she said basically there's a range between the mean Lilith position and the true Lilith position. And that range represents a special space that's sensitive to Lilith. Now, I don't know. I don't know the answers. I'm just sharing this. I would love to have the time to look at a couple of the things in your presentation in more depth than it was possible to do tonight.
Mhm. I will share. I will share a PDF of this presentation.
What?
I will share a PDF of this presentation.
Okay, that would help. Then I could check out a couple of things I really wanted to
Of course,
get
I want to share this.
information on. Is your birth information in the presentation so that we can use that?
Yeah, it's in the presentation.
There you go. Okay.
And,
Okay.
and the locations to the second accurate.
Got it.
Okay. I want to make sure we have a lot of people who attend who are very quiet very often as well. Does anybody else have any comments or questions for Ton? Are no other urgent things? Okay.
I'd just like to say that number 4 looks really good and manageable as a potential research project. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm busy with null sets. I'm not sure if I'll get around to doing it, but it interests me. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
You did the inauguration of president, didn't you?
Penelope, did you do
The
research?
inauguration of the president. No, I haven't done research on the
Okay.
inauguration, but
Okay.
Somebody else in this group
Yeah.
did that type of research.
And I like number 2. I've mentioned and Ton referred to it. I've been a little bit surprised that in the models I've built, the moon almost never shows up in the models. I can't get it to improve the p-values, the effect sizes, the confidence levels, because it's quantitative research. People will look at my research and they'll say, well, look, the moon makes sense here. But I'm doing a quantitative result. And when I put the moon in, it gets worse. So it's a very measurable thing. And I have never tried using the topocentric moon. And
Mhm.
it would be interesting, we have the bipolar disorder, we have the eating disorders where I expected the moon to be important. So many kinds of research, and they just do not improve the statistical results. So, and I've never tried. What if we go in there, put the moon in there and improve? I don't know. I'd love to find out.
Yeah. And I hope that some astrologers will be interested in idea number 3, that
Mm,
everybody can calculate for himself and share his or her impression.
yeah. Okay, well, we had two extensive, fascinating presentations today. Um, and, I know there's more out there, so just email me. I generally do them in the order that I get them. Any other things? Does anybody want to mention any other topics or questions?
David, I did email you about a question on the last thing that we talked about in the last meeting about uh, the difference in distribution of vibrations. It was more related to the 31 vibration,
And the
the 43
43. Yeah.
vibration, and I mean White did send
Yeah.
you an email
Oh,
about it.
oh, yeah, I received the email. I'll try to email you. I usually have about 20 unanswered emails and often takes me over a week to respond, but I did see it and I'll try to respond by I will respond by this weekend. But a lot of people are surprised when I actually respond 3 weeks later. Um, I try to keep up with the most immediate important things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Did
got
you
it,
read?
Des, and I will respond soon.
Did you read it?
I did. I don't want to get into it now because anything I have to say will take at least 10 minutes. It's very interesting and there's a lot to say about it. Yeah. But I'll email you definitely by this weekend. I promise to do that. Um, I mean, within 4 or 5 days. I often catch up on weekends with email correspondence. Um, yeah. Anything else? We're good? The Astrologers Anonymous group that can't stop will finally stop because I know a lot of us can just go for hours and hours. Okay. All right. I guess we will close here. Let me just say a few things again. Number one, I want to thank both people, Todd and Benjamin. And sorry I didn't get to the rest of you. I know the rest of you had questions as well. I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to repeat what I announced at the beginning. Starlene's been mentioning it in the chat. Let me just review these things. The new website is up, cosmobiologyinstitute.org. The other domain name will be transferred to it within a few days. And the registration is open for the conference. This is a big, exciting thing. Some of the board members are putting dozens and dozens, perhaps hundreds of hours into making this conference happen, just donating time and energy. So there are people who believe in this and are extending themselves to make it possible. We'll see if we succeed. Can we pay the bills? Will enough people be excited to come? But we're sticking our neck out. We're going to do it. So late April 20 of next year, it's less than a year away. Was it 9 months or something in Nashville? And we have until you have about 3 more weeks to submit papers, and then we'll announce who all the speakers and who the topics will be. And we're here, we're team players. We want everyone to be able to share. We're gonna have a place for people to put up poster boards or flyers and share in between. So even if you're not a speaker, there's gonna be lots of opportunity to share what you're doing with research. And the theme of the conference is what have we gained good confidence in? And there are things. So, using modern research methods is improving astrology. And in my opinion, astrologers are lagging behind because they're not taking advantage of the things that we now have confidence in new understanding of. So this is exciting. And the combination of people practicing and applying the ideas and then going back to the researchers, and it's just that's how progress is made. Okay, any last comments or we sign off here? We're all good? Okay. Thank you very much for being here. And I'll see you next month. And I'll talk to Angela, who heads up all this stuff. Starlene's here. She manages the website and stuff. Maybe we need to have a sharing of emails of people who attend because there's so much. It seems a shame to wait a whole month before we meet again. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time. God bless. Namaste.
Namaste.